Thanks so much, Alex, for starting the recording. I did just want to verify we have someone who is calling in with a 301 area code. Do you mind just identifying yourself? Well, you might be muted and we're unable to hear you, but welcome to the Segmental Advisory Council of the Maryland Higher Education Commission. It is a public meeting. So we have two items for business where we will approve the minutes from April 21st and June 16th, 2025. Unless our general counsel objects, I'd like to just bundle those for approval so we don't have to do two separate votes. Not hearing any concerns. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 21st and June 16th Segmental Advisory Council? I've got Brad, Dr. Phillips. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, President Power. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and consider those approved. Good morning, Secretary Rye. We're just getting started.
Good morning. Sorry, I got a few minutes late, but thank you for being here. We're looking forward to a productive couple of hours.
Thanks so much, Mr. Secretary. So again, welcome everyone to the first meeting of the fall, packed agenda, and we have a number of different presentations for you today. So why don't I turn it over to our dear friend and colleague, Tom Harnish, who is a Vice President for Government Relations at the State Higher Education Executive Officers Organization. As you'll recall, back in June, we committed to providing you with regular standing updates on federal policy changes at all of our meetings. So Tom has agreed to join us and present these high-level updates. So Tom, why don't I turn it over to you to take it away? And thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Oh, well, thank you, Elena, for the invitation. Glad to be back. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. And good to see friends on the call. Good to see you, Brad. And I think I saw Kalia earlier, who used to work on the SHIO team. So good to see you all. So yeah, just a few months, just a few things have happened in American higher education. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly, but because I do want to get to the Q&A portion, and I know some of you have heard this. This information before. For some of you, it might be for the first time, but we'll cover the one big beautiful bill, and then some things that have happened since then from the executive branch, as well as from some court rulings. And I guess I can share my screen. Let's see, I don't know. I can just send it all over to you afterwards if that's okay. But I do want to
Tom, do you want us to pull it up for you while we'd be happy to.
Can I just send it to you right now? And then we'll
not a problem. I know you worked on some slides for the group.
Yeah, so it's all righty. Okay.
While he's doing that, we could all take a meditative moment. When do we ever get a moment to breathe and just have a moment? Sorry, thank you.
For those of you, no, I appreciate that, Dr. Dow, especially for those of us who started with the meeting that you just led Monday morning, 9 o'clock with the Program Review Advisory Council. So we could always use a moment for transition, and grateful for everyone who is doing double duty with the commission this Monday morning.
Yeah, a lot to talk about, and it's interesting because someone wrote on, I think, LinkedIn or Twitter the other day that any one of these stories in a normal year would be like a huge deal. But there's so much being thrown at us at once that it's hard to sometimes to take it all in. It can be quite overwhelming at times. But I do want to just start as Elena brings up the PowerPoint, just to start with the big beautiful bill, and we'll just go through some of the key provisions in there. First, I'll start with the exemption of assets on the FAFSA. The second part is loan limits, loan repayment, Pell Grants, accountability, regulation, tax policy, and the non-higher ed items. So just the first part is on the FAFSA. So federal student aid will exempt assets of family farms, small businesses with fewer than 100 employees, or commercial fishing businesses. And this is something that many in the higher education community wanted and pushed for. In recent, it used to be this way that if you had a small business or a family farm, that those assets would not count towards your FAFSA calculations. That has changed in recent years, and this just takes us back to that. And the logic behind that is, if you have a small business or family farm, that you just can't sell a portion of that to send your son or daughter to school. So that will take effect on July 1 of 2026. The next is the loan limits, and this is going to be a big deal, particularly for graduate education. So undergraduate loans are going to be largely unchanged by this. Outside of Parent Plus, it's basically going to be the system that we have right now. With Graduate Plus loans, though, Graduate Plus loans are going to be phased out starting July 1 of 2026. And what the Graduate Plus loans do, the Grad Plus loans, they basically say you can borrow up to the cost of attendance. And with graduate student loans being about half the student loan portfolio these days, there's just concern among lawmakers on the Hill that there was just too much federal exposure to graduate student debt. So in its place are going to be regular federal unsubsidized loans, but for master's degree programs, they're going to be capped at $20,500 annually, with a total lifetime cap of $100,000 for professional programs. So this is your MDs, your JDs, et cetera, PhDs. They're going to be capped at $50,000 annually with a $200,000 lifetime cap. This is in addition to the current caps at the undergraduate level. So the total cap, total federal exposure can be up to $257,000. Parent Plus loans, which lawmakers have been scrutinizing for years, would be capped at $20,000 annually with a $65,000 lifetime cap. So that is going to change. I think, one of the, just to back up on this particular area, is that I think there's going to be discussion in states in the months and years ahead about graduate school loans, and whether states some states already have student loan programs, but if states are going to establish loan programs, so those that are going into professional programs do not have to dip into the private markets. Because if you look here, like with a MD with a $200,000 lifetime cap, most MD programs go well beyond that. And if you're in the with a private college, it could go to $300,000 or beyond. So those students are now going to have to get financing in the private markets. So I do think that there's going to be states exploring opportunities to create new student loan programs to help out those students. I also think there's going to be a lot of discussion in negotiated rulemaking, which I'll talk about in a bit, about what is characterized as a master's degree program and what is characterized in the professional degree program, and whether there's going to be moves from different programs to try to get into that into the professional bucket as opposed to the master's bucket. So that is where we are at on loan limits. If we go to the next slide. So this is just a screenshot from Preston Cooper at the American Enterprise Institute. And again, as you can see here, it just spells out if you have graduate loans and Parent Plus loans, just the new caps that are going to be in place under the one big beautiful bill. Okay. All right, and if we go to the next slide, so loan repayment. So this has been a goal on the Hill for years. It's just that there are too many student loan programs that borrowers have to navigate a whole maze of different loan repayment plans. So going forward, starting in 2026, two programs. One is going to be a standard repayment program, and then the other one is going to be known as a repayment assistance program. So one's going to be income-based, one's going to be on a standardized plan. And then for those that are currently in the system, they're going to have to make decisions in 2028, by 2028, about where they want to go with their student loans. But they can have access to the RAP program, the repayment assistance program, the standard repayment program, as well as for those borrowers below about pre-2014 and post-2014 about the amount of discretionary income that they have. So so it's going to be a little bit more complicated for those that are in the system right now over the next few years and what program they get placed into. But for those that are going forward, starting in 2026, there's going to be two federal student loan repayment programs. If we go to the next slide. Okay, and then these are just screenshots from our friends at the Institute for College Access and Success about the new standard repayment program and the new repayment assistance plan. We go to the next slide. So Pell Grants. This is the main event, I think. One of the main events of this is the changes to Pell Grants. So I'm going to talk about Workforce Pell, but this is going to authorize Pell Grants to be used for 8 to 15-week programs that are offered by accredited institutions. So this is something the community college sector has been advocating for years. So that is going to start in 2026. They did include some funding to stabilize the finances of the program, which are facing long-term deficits. So this is about over the next 2 years or so about how much basically filling the Pell Grant shortfall for the next 2 years or so. And then there are also new provisions about Pell Grants if their total cost of attendance is already covered from other sources. That is been confusing to a lot of people, including myself, about what that means or how if that's going to change Pell Grants from a first dollar program, which historically it is, to a last dollar program. And I'll talk about that in a bit. Foreign income will be included in the gross income for Pell Grant calculations, as well as if you have a high SAI, then no Pell Grants. So if we go to the next slide, this is just the provision that's caused a lot of confusion. And this was the original intent of this was for Division I athletes that get a full ride. One of the senators is a former football coach at a D1 institution. You can get a Pell Grant as well as a full ride to a D1, a Division I scholarship. It was calculated by CBO they took like 2,000 college athletes and that receive full rides. But the question is about this is if this is now like how are financial aid offices going to know about private sources? Is this something where it's going to make it a lot more complicated to receive Pell Grants? How do they deal with situations where they may get up to cost of attendance? Again, we're talking about a relatively small amount of students that would receive a full ride. But if they cobble together state, institutional, private sources, does that leave them on the outside looking in as far as getting access to Pell? So more to come on that, but that's something I think that the department is going to be clarifying. If we go to the next slide. Okay, so this is just a drill down on Workforce Pell. So 150 to 599 clock hours, accredited institution, no correspondence courses, and then governors working with their workforce boards are going to approve programs. And here are some of the requirements that are listed in the statute. And then from there, the Secretary of Education must determine that it's been operating for a year. Completion rates, job placement rates, and value-added earnings. Again, a lot of this, as far as what definitions are going to be used, what data is going to be used, I think that is going to be hashed out at negotiated rulemaking. we continue on. So again, this is just a more provisions related to workforce Pell. Just that they have to already qualify for a Pell grant, can't complete a graduate level program, prorated for length, etc. So these are just, again, more provisions about related to workforce Pell. We go to the next slide. Accountability provisions. So this is something that we're learning more about how this is all going to happen. But the basic intent behind this is that you don't want programs to do harm to people, right? So for an undergraduate program, it bans new student loans, not Pell, just student loans, from undergraduate programs where the majority of completers earn less than the median high school graduate in the same state. And then for graduate programs, a little different, bans new federal loans for graduate programs where the majority of completers earn less than a bachelor's degree recipient in the same field in the same state. So that is going to start on July 1 of 2026. Certificate programs are not included, and this is at the programmatic level. It's not at the institutional level. So there's been some preliminary analyses here. If we can go to the next slide. And this is just the new accountability framework and how it compares to the gainful employment provisions that are already in regulation. We'll go to the next slide. So this is just one is done by Claire McCann, who worked in the Biden administration. So her and Jordan Matsudair and the team at American University have run some of the numbers on this. They are going to be putting out a report in the weeks ahead that's going to provide much more information about this. And then Preston Cooper, he's at the more conservative leaning AEI, American Enterprise Institute. But from what we're seeing here, for at least at the bachelor's degree level, for public higher education, master's to doctoral level, it looks like most of them are going to be over that threshold. Look, there may be some more problems at the associate's degree level from what I see with their analyses, but for the most part, most programs are going to, it looks like, going to be over that threshold. But more to come on this, and looking forward to seeing a new analysis come out in the weeks ahead with more granular data. I think that might be more useful to states. Okay, if we go to the next slide, and then regulations on borrower defense to repayment and close school discharge. Yep.
Can I ask, maybe just on that more granular date, do you anticipate states getting, let me go back to the slide that I have a question about. Do you anticipate states getting data from, yeah, go ahead.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's going to be part of the analysis. It's not public yet, but I think that there's going to be more granular analysis done. So we'll have to see what that looks like.
And it looks like my colleague, Dr. Dow, has her hand up.
Relatedly, I think I'm asking the same question, but maybe in a different way. Will it be on the state? Who will do this analysis?
Yeah, I think it will not be done at the federal level. I think there's think tanks that are working on this right now. So it will not be official. It's just going to be what I've heard is that there's going to be different think tanks that are going to be doing analysis on this. So just something to watch out for. And at SHIO, we'll share this whenever any information is available.
So just like following this thread though, who will, like, it's the feds that are ultimately going to make the determination whether or not a program is eligible. So it would behoove, it seems like it would behoove states to verify.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. I guess that's what we're trying to get at.
Yep, I think so. Yeah. And so I think, when these analyses come out from the different think tanks, we'll be sharing them with you. Yep. But I've just heard that different think tanks are going to be putting out more information in the weeks ahead about this. Yep.
That's helpful. And I see Secretary has his hand up and so does Al. And this is just very incredibly beneficial, I think, for SHIO staff to be hearing and then like also sense making with our colleagues at the institutional level, since we're all going to be impacted. And I think, like I said publicly in July, the timeline is so tight that we want to be sure that we have the latest information, knowing that these turnarounds are super tight. So we can go to the Secretary and then Al Dorset, who oversees OSFA.
Tom, thank you. Very, very helpful information. A lot of clarity on several things. Can you go to your slide on workforce spell?
Yes, sir.
I have a question on that one. I think there's another slide where you talk about number of hours and the state.
Yep.
Yeah. So, so the first first three bullets are necessary.
Yep.
But then states have flexibility. Programs that meet the first three, then we can further clarify what programs within those will be eligible for the workforce spell.
Yep.
State has that flexibility.
Yep. So yeah, if it meets those three, and then it has to meet those three right there, or else it's totally not. It's not eligible out of the gate. And then from there, you have to make determinations about high wage, employer requirements, stackable, portable, etc.
Because high demand, high wage, those things are different for different states.
Yep. And so that it's going to be governors working with workforce boards to make those determinations. Now, how we define some of those are going to be, I think that's going to be something that's going to be discussed at negotiated rulemaking, and what data is being used. That also is going to be discussed at negotiated rulemaking.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Very clear. Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay.
We've got,
hey, Al.
How you doing, Thomas?
Good, sir. How are you doing?
I'm all right, hanging in there. Just to ask, it would be good to get clarification with the workforce Pell, because as I read the one big beautiful bill, it does indicate in the language consistent with Title IV eligibility. So, that's where, as I've talked to different colleagues looking for more clarification, does the program, not only the institution, have to be Title IV eligible? And that's where I've kind of been looking for clarity, where, as I've talked with individuals, it's like I'm not getting any certificate or like clarification on, yes, it means that, no, it doesn't mean this. So just that specific language, and I could send you the specific language.
Yeah.
But that'd be great to get clarity on.
Yep.
And
Please
then
do send me that. Yep.
Yes. And then the only other thing is, I was talking over the weekend to different colleagues that the loan and the programs is going to be a big thing, especially for the institutions that are pulling out-of-state students.
Yes, it is.
Because when you look at those individuals coming in, and we were talking about like programs like, I wouldn't say public health, but like just those kind of like public policy, those criminal justice type programs where individuals are graduating, and are they making a certain income that meet those criteria? Because if they're not, and we know there's a large of individuals that go into programs like criminal justice, especially out-of-state individuals, will they have enough funds, or will institutions start losing individuals? So some individuals share with me that they as an institution, not so much the state, but they as an institution started really looking at kind of their programs, how many students are graduating from their different programs, and trying to gather some information on income for those individuals, because they're going to really kind of start looking at, do they still highlight those programs, or what do they do just in case those programs are identified to prepare for them?
Yeah. Yep. That's the accountability provision on graduate school programs then?
No, that's the accountability on the undergrad.
Oh, on the undergrad. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's going to be, that's going to be an area that people are going to be watching closely just because, and we've heard concerns, particularly like on the undergraduate level, for example, if you're a teacher in rural Colorado, and you've got an undergraduate degree, and you're going to be competing against people, that may have a high school diploma, but they're in a higher wage area like Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're concerned that could have effects on some of those programs that may have lower wages, but are absolutely integral to our communities. So that is something, again, as different think tanks put out different projections and analysis, that we're going to be watching closely. Because I've gotten calls from college presidents about that they're watching some of those programs, and that, they don't have control over in rural Colorado about what local school districts can pay the teachers, but they have a responsibility to educate them, and help them get into those schools.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Tom. Great to see you again. Thank you so much for doing this overview. I know it's a lot.
Yeah.
I have a list of questions though, but
Okay.
I do want to start with one that's, I think, probably needs an answer that Al just brought up. I'm under the impression that it is accredited institution and not a program that's Title IV eligible. To me, I mean, if it were Title IV eligible already, you wouldn't need Workforce Pell. It's like saying, to be eligible for Workforce Pell, you have to be Pell eligible. Why do we need that? So I think get a clarity on that would be very helpful. But to that point, the second issue I have is when the governor, in your list of what the governors in consultation with the workforce boards, the last bullet, must provide credit toward a certificate or a degree program. Now, a lot of our offerings in this area are what we consider non-credit, for a better term. Is it equated credit? Is it really have to be in credit courses? Because that's a big difference, and that'll impact the way in which we're structured a lot.
Yes, this is an area, right? You hit on a key question, and we were on a call the other day with the Financial Aid Officers Association. This is a key question right now about how non-credit is handled. It's a lot of confusion about people reading it different ways. There's been actually analysis done on non-credit programs and how they and what data they could use for non-credit programs, because you have to have data to show, completion and job placement. There's concern about with those non-credit programs for the state data infrastructure, and states potentially being left behind because they don't have that non-credit data available. So this is something where I don't have a good answer for you right now. I think I can just say that there's a lot of confusion out there in the community about how non-credit is going to be handled. And I've heard, again, a whole different explanations and ideas from different people.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And I imagine a lot of this will get determined in the rulemaking process happening in January. So we'll make sure our Governor's Workforce Board representative knows our issues when she's at the table. The other one is around Pell and the cost of attendance and what's 100% covered. And I know you kind of answered this. It sounds like to me that if you have some type of scholarship or athletic scholarship in particular, but what about other state grants? I'm particularly thinking about Promise right here. Normally how this works is last dollar is Promise. We take the Pell grant, and then the remainder of need is covered by other state sources of aid, including the Pell. Are we supposed to now figure out what their Pell eligibility is first and then apply the gap with the Pell grant, or does it make sense?
Again, another big question that we have out there. My understanding of it is that before, and this is what Hill staff have written to me, before even touching Pell, if you have the full cost of attendance covered by like an athletic scholarship or something like that, then you're not eligible for Pell. That's my understanding of it. But again, a lot of confusion out there about that particular provision.
And I guess that's something that will become more clear as we get
I
closer.
think so.
Okay.
Yep. And that's something that we're going to be asking clarity on as well, just because there are a lot of state programs out there that that integrate Pell through different promise programs, and there's been talk about potentially reformatting those programs, et cetera. And I think we want to get clarity and negotiated rulemaking about that before anybody moves forward on anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tom. I'll stop there.
Yep.
Awesome.
Al has a question.
Al has his hand, and sorry, Tom, I'm glad that we got a chance to ask you some questions. And I would just echo, knowing that Al's about to jump in, that this is something that we've been following closely. Our financial aid programs, I'll take the second to say, there's 27 of them. And the eligibility requirements and when and how Pell and other aid gets applied is inconsistent throughout.
Right.
So there is also, I think, an opportunity, as there's a little bit of crisis on the federal level, to think about how we can improve financial aid at the state level. You never let a crisis go unused if you could use it to your advantage. So, but there's still no answers, and there's dozens of promise programs across the country that are set up as a last dollar program. So thank you for your advocacy and just connecting with folks and trying to bring clarity to these big questions.
It's a great question, and a lot of states have different programs out there, and we've gotten a lot of questions on it. So it's very legitimate, and people are reading this different ways. So those are all legitimate questions. Yep. Al?
Yeah, I had one more question. In regards to ineligibility for students with high aid indexes, have they identified the number of students that received Pell previously with a high aid index, and
Right.
how many will actually be losing? And I'm just wondering, because part of our guaranteed access grant renewal process is, if a student does not meet the income limits as a renewal student, they can still be eligible for the guaranteed access grant if they're Pell eligible. I'm just trying to figure out or figure a way to identify how many students may potentially lose the guaranteed access grant because they're no longer eligible for Pell when they were before.
Right. Great question. I can try to get you that information. I believe this is what's called the Pellionaire provision. Families with low income but significant assets who qualify for the automatic minimum Pell Grant despite having a high SAI from the asset contribution. But I can check in with my colleagues at NASFA and see if they've done an analysis on how the Pellionaire how that would play out.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so just to finish up here on OB3 as they call it. So we talked about the regulations that they're going to be delayed, and then if we go to the next slide, tax policy. If you're a wealthy private college, you're going to be paying with at least 3,000 tuition paying students, you're going to be paying a much steeper endowment tax. So that's on the net investment income. So I took a picture of Harvard there. Harvard, one of those institutions that would likely be affected by that. So if we go to the next provision, this is actually could be the biggest issue actually in the legislation. And I've told people that the biggest higher ed issue in this may not be in the higher ed section at all. It's the Medicaid cuts and the SNAP cuts. So we're looking at sharp cuts to Medicaid starting in 2028, particularly with the provider tax. And states are going to have to make really difficult decisions. The saving grace that we do have is that this is delayed until 2028. So there could be a new Congress coming in 2027 that could try to make changes to this. And we saw that during the Obamacare discussion, the Cadillac tax that was very unpopular that would help finance Obamacare, but that got delayed, and then eventually they got rid of it. But this could have significant effects on state budgets. So, and as we know, higher education is one of the most sensitive parts of state budgets to macroeconomic changes, but also budgetary changes, because they have to devote more funding to Medicaid. And there's actually statistical relationships on the relationship between, or statistical analysis on the relationship between higher ed spending and increases in state Medicaid spending. So that is something that, particularly in the SHIO community, that we're going to be watching closely. Okay, as we go to the next slide. So this is what I was mentioning about negotiated rulemaking. So they just announced, I don't think it's public quite yet, who's on the RISE committee. So that's going to be focused on student loan provision. That's going to be in the fall. As we head into the winter, the AHEAD committee, which is going to be dealing with workforce Pell and the accountability issues. So that is one that we are going to be watching closely in December and early January. We suspect that it's going to be very difficult because they are starting a new program from scratch with Workforce Pell to reach consensus with this. You know, everybody at the table has to reach consensus, or the Department of Education gets to write the regulations. So it's going to be very difficult to reach consensus. But we do suspect that we'll see the regulations in the spring. They'll go out for notice and comment, and they'll probably take effect early next summer, sometime before the July 1 start date. So, but it's unclear exactly, again, what the timeline is, but just based on previous negotiated rulemaking, it does take a time for them to post the final rule, and then have everybody comment on it, and then have it operationalized. Post the draft rule, I should say, and then they get to the final rule. So as we move on, now I want to talk, switch gears to appropriations. And I sorry if I'm going over on time, but so FY26 appropriations, this is, there's a real threat of a shutdown. I won't sugarcoat that. But by September 30th, we have to have either a continuing resolution, or which is much more likely, or we will have the budget bills passed. But they are far from getting the budget bills passed. So what I've heard lately is that they're looking at a continuing resolution to keep the government funded until November 21st, which is the weekend prior to Christmas, or prior to Thanksgiving. So we are just watching that. But where it comes down, President Trump has called for deep cuts to education program in his budget that he put out. The Senate, of course, is a collaborative body. They have to reach 60 votes. The Senate Appropriations Committee basically came back and said, we're mostly going to flat fund what we have right now. So basically the status quo, with a few minor changes, but that passed with broad bipartisan support. And then the House came back, and again, the House runs on a majority rule. So the House has said, we're going to level fund Pell, we're going to level fund Gear Up, we're going to level fund TRIO, but sharp cuts to SEOG, work study, and other programs. So their budget is different than President Trump's, but the overall cuts are somewhat similar. So the House and the Senate are going to have to come together. And this is, for Democrats, this is a big issue, because this is one of the rare points where they have leverage. And they took a lot of criticism last time for not using that leverage to get more concessions from the GOP. So real threat of a shutdown, but we are going to be watching that.
So I'm sorry, just one last question.
Yeah.
So if we are level funding Pell grants,
yep,
and then we are also talking about workforce Pell.
Yep.
So how can we do both?
Yeah, I mean, I should say level fund the maximum Pell.
Okay, maximum.
Sorry, Mr. Secretary. Yep, it is a level of funding of the maximum Pell Grant, and I believe that would be the fourth year now that we've level funded Pell. So inflation is chipping away at it. We are going to. I know there's a coalition in DC that SHIO is joining the call for a bump in Pell, but if the House and the Senate are at level funding, it's going to be difficult to go beyond that. So we'll have to see, but we're going to continue to fight for increases in the Pell Grant max. So this is just a breakdown. You can see here the President's budget FY26, House and Senate. So the differences between the two. So now if we go to the executive branch activities, so Department of Labor is going to be taking a greater role in administering some of the programs at the U.S. Department of Education. So the Department of Education is going to have formal control, but it looks like the day-to-day is going to be run by Department of Labor. And I think if it was a full transition over to Department of Labor, I think that would raise concerns because of how the law is written. So I think this may go into a gray area about Department of Labor administering the programs, but Department of Education overseeing the program. So that is something we're watching. On the public service loan forgiveness program, so this was an executive order followed by negotiated rulemaking from President Trump executive order, followed by a negotiated rulemaking this summer that did not reach consensus about limitations to the public service loan forgiveness program. So this would be for aiding and abetting illegal immigration, they've highlighted, terrorism. I believe there's provision related to child abuse in there. So different areas where illegal discrimination. So they have a number of areas laid out where they could limit folks working in those nonprofits, their eligibility for public service loan forgiveness program. This is very controversial. It will likely be challenged in court, as critics have pushed back and said the statute does not say anything about that you can limit who's a qualified employer. Basically, if you're a public or not-for-profit employer, you are eligible for PSLF. So that is something that it's out for comment right now, but as this gets implemented, this will likely be challenged in court. On admissions, this is going to be a big deal for our institutional research folks. So this is just out for public comment right now, but the Trump administration is calling for sweeping amounts of data related to admissions. So, and I'm happy to send along to you the notice in the Federal Register, but the concerns that we have about this is just the administrative burden that it's going to put on institutions. It is only going to be for institutions that have selectivity. So open access institutions would not be part of this. But for other institutions, they may not even have, this goes back into the pandemic. They'd have to have all sorts of information about test scores, about students who applied but didn't enroll, which some institutions may not have. The capacity of the department to take this on, because they really really gutted the capacity of the department to take this on. So there's a lot of concerns about the quality of the data and the definitions that are being used, and if people are going to be adhering to different definitions, or they're just going to have give data that what they think instead of having a more thought out process on this. So this is something that typically, and I used to be part of the technical review process at the department, would take potentially years to do. But they are going to be taking on a pretty massive task of taking on all of this admissions data from institutions that's going to be disaggregated by race and gender. So that is something that we're going to be watching. Again, it's just in the comment phase right now, so it is not official, but that would be a big administrative burden on institutions. And then if we go to the next slide. FAFSA looks to be in good shape right now. So they are going through beta testing, and that will be ready and open on October 1. There is a new, some guidance, a memo put out by Attorney General Pam Bondi related to unlawful discriminations for entities receiving federal funding. So colleges and universities are part of that, including discrimination via proxy. So I have received questions from the SHIO community about what exactly this means. This is, again, it's not a regulation. It is not a law. It is guidance. So what they believe what needs to be done in order to follow the law. But there are concerns about scholarships and other areas that could be considered discrimination under this Bondi memo. An international student's new rule is proposed by the Department of Education related to student visas for 4 years. So this is what's known as duration of status. There's concern, particularly for like PhD students, that may go beyond the 4 years and what this could mean for them, and new administrative burdens and hassles that they may run into. But this is something that the first Trump administration tried, and it was withdrawn by the Biden administration. And so they're looking to bring that back. And the administration has basically said that they have many instances where students are way overstaying their visas, and they want to put new parameters on that. On MSI funding, so this is very new. I'm sure you saw this in the press, that they've ended funding for discretionary grant programs at MSIs. This does not include HBCUs or tribal colleges or universities that are mission-based, but rather just those that are MSIs. So Native American serving non-tribal, Anapizis, which are Asian Pacific Islanders. The big one is, of course, Hispanic serving institutions. So there are a number of MSIs out there where their discretionary grants, the Department of Education has said that they will no longer fund those discretionary grants, because they receive both mandatory and discretionary funding from the department. Elena, you have a question?
So the question is more for the group on this. I was waiting until you got to the MSI funding. So we have a request out to a number of the segments, but I'd like to put it out to the entire Segmental Advisory Council. MHEC would like to get a better understanding of the impact of this latest ruling from the Department of Education. So if you could give us a sense of which institutions currently have received discretionary grant programs that are considered to be MSIs, that would be incredibly helpful. And then if you had any institutions that were going to seek funding that were MSIs through the discretionary grants, that would be really helpful. I know Secretary Rye and I were having a conversation last week. There are a number of institutions who get funding, particularly not just from the MSI status itself and trying to support students through support services, but some of the STEM programming that is eligible for institutions that have that MSI designation might be impacted. So I'll follow up in an email to members of the Segmental Advisory Council, but just need to better understand the impact on the Maryland landscape here. And obviously, it goes without stating, but I will say for the record that we're very disappointed to see this critical funding disappear as a resource for our institutions who support these students.
And Elena, I have reached out to the department trying to get like a spreadsheet of all the different grant programs in the states. And if they provide that to me, that would be affected by this. If they provide that to me, I'd be happy to share that with you. Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment on student visas for international students. As many of you know, I came here as an international student. So, you know, when you go to embassy and get your visa is stamped for a certain number of years. In our days, you know, if you're a PhD student, it will say 5-year multiple entry visa. Undergraduate students also, you know, 4-year, you know, is not the average time of completion nationally. So it will say, you know, 4 years. But once you get inside the country, your I-20 form says duration of stay. Duration of stay means as long as you're a full-time student. Doesn't mean it's all 4 years are guaranteed. If you are taking 12 credit, paying full tuition, then your visa is valid. Suppose it's a 4-year visa, you didn't finish in 4th year, but you have not left the country. You're within the country, then you can say extend additional years, year 1 or 2, as long as you're enrolled as a full-time student and you're paying the tuition. I just wanted to make sure that clarity is there, because how it's being presented in media and other places is not completely accurate.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And we look forward to learning more about, again, as this moves forward. I believe it's in the comment stage right now. So about where exactly they come down on this. And then just to finish up here, executive order on grant making. So we're having continued problems with delays related to Gear Up grants and TRIO grants. And I think you saw Inside Higher Ed this morning or Friday that there are delays just with those TRIO grants. And it looks like with the Gear Up grants that they have some extensions on that, but they're continuing to review those Gear Up grants. So we'll provide more information on that when that's available. And then just to finish up here, the HSI lawsuit. So this is how this worked out, is that the state of Tennessee partnered with the SFFA, Students for Fair Admissions, and that was the group that challenged the Harvard affirmative action policy and was successful. And they basically have filed a lawsuit in Tennessee saying that Hispanic serving institutions, and by extension all MSIs outside of HBCUs and tribal colleges, are unconstitutional because of the ruling in 2023 with respect to the affirmative action. And they're saying, hey, if you have a quota, and Hispanic serving institutions are 25% Hispanic students to be eligible for HSI, since you have those quotas and they are based on race, that those quotas are illegal. The Trump administration, normally when the federal government is being sued, the Department of Justice will, of course, challenge that. But the administration has basically come back and said, we agree with you, and that this is illegal. And so I know that there's been a move by HACU, which is the Hispanic Serving Institutions Association, that they want to step in and defend the law. But right now it is in federal law, and unless there's a ruling or a change by Congress, HSIs are still on the books. But we are going to be watching the space, just because it looks like the future and the certainty of HSIs is unclear at this time. The in-state tuition for undocumented students. So Texas, Illinois, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Minnesota. Texas and Oklahoma have already changed their policies when the administration challenged them. But other states, looks like they're going to be pushing back. So we're at 5 states right now. There's a lot more with that do provide in-state tuition for undocumented students. But it seems like they're just taking one state at a time. The DEI letter that maybe we talked about in the previous call from February 14th, that basically said that we're taking the 2023 Supreme Court decision on affirmative action and extending it to everything in higher education. So graduation ceremonies, scholarships, etc. That you can't have any race-based programming in higher education at all based on that decision. So that was a letter. It wasn't a regulation or a law, but it was a letter. But that was challenged in court, and a Maryland-based judge came back and said that letter was illegal. So that has been permanently blocked. But we'll be watching to see if the administration appeals that. They may feel that they have stronger support at the appeals court or at the Supreme Court level. But right now that letter is permanently blocked. The reduction in force. So that is what I talked about earlier, what they the employees at the Department of Education, there's been a significant downsizing that has been allowed to take place. But at the OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, those employees will be returning in waves starting this fall. And then the indirect cost caps. So this is the administrative costs at the research institutions that are associated with federal grants. And the administration wants to ratchet that down to 15%. Right now for those federal research grants, it's well beyond that. It could be 27%, I believe is the average, or it can be much more than that. So this would have a real detrimental effect on our research institutions. That's been blocked in federal court, but we'll continue to watch that. So I know there's a question. So.
No, I don't see any
Okay.
hands.
Okay.
Tom, thank you.
All right. Well, I think that if we go to the next slide, I think we are basically done. So I put out my daily policy update if you want to follow the blow by blow, and my email should be right here in the final slide. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy to help in any way I can.
Well, Tom, let me be the first to just express my deep, deep gratitude for you and your leadership. There's so many of us, I think, across the country who are looking to you and SHIO for this kind of guidance. If it's okay with you, I will PDF the slides and share it with the group to make sure that everybody has access to this information. I know that you're on a little bit of a road tour or you're on the road doing a tour, and you'll be speaking with our colleagues in Ohio later this week. I will just say on behalf of the team at MHEC, we will reach out to you so that staff can have a conversation with you ahead of the November Segmental Advisory Council meeting. It would just be very beneficial to us. But let me see if anybody else from the group has any questions before we let you go. Okay, I waited the 10 seconds that's accepted by normal pedagogical standards. Tom, mil gracias. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your week and happy fall semester.
All right. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Dr. Harnish. Let me go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Dow. We're going to rearrange a bit on the agenda to make sure that our external speakers have a chance to address the group. So Dr. Dow, let me turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I am excited to share with you two funding opportunities today, one of which happy to turn the time over to my colleague, Brendan Welsh from the Maryland Department of Health, who will talk a little bit about some funding resources around opioid resources. So, Brendan, take it away.
Awesome. First off, thank you for facilitating that really interesting conversation. And thank you to everybody who's on the call today that's part of strengthening our state for the citizens across Maryland. It's really important work that we're all doing, whether it's in the educational field or in the behavioral health field, part of which we are really excited to join you to present on today. So my name is Brendan Welsh. I'm the Division Director of Prevention and Promotion from Maryland's Behavioral Health Administration. Our division really focuses on three main things. The first is substance use disorder and suicide prevention. The second is focusing on community-based access and support. And the third area is public awareness. And actually, I should have said four important things, because the fourth area that we're here to discuss today is our overdose response program, which is facilitated under the leadership of Michael Baer, who will be joining us today to share resources that are available to all of our higher institutes of education, some of which are actually already participating in this program. And so I'm going to get ready to turn it over to Michael, but really just to center our discussion today, we're going to be focusing on free of charge overdose prevention resources that span things like naloxone, as well as drug testing strips. So with that out of the way, let me turn it over to our program manager, Michael Baer. Michael?
All right, thank you, Brendan. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Baer. I'm the program manager for the Office of Harm Reduction at the MDH Behavioral Health Administration. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. Okay, and I'm going to talk to you today about the Maryland Overdose Response Program. So give me 1 second here. So here's a quick summary of what I'm going to walk through. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about naloxone, which is a medication that is used to safely and effectively reverse respiratory depression that is caused by opioid overdose. I'm going to talk about overdose response programs, which are organizations that train individuals to recognize and respond to opioid overdose with naloxone. I'm going to talk about our role at the Maryland Department of Health in authorizing and overseeing overdose response programs, and a little bit about how we manage this responsibility, which includes basically providing naloxone and drug testing strips free of charge to authorized overdose response programs, multiple of which currently are institutions of higher education in the state, and how we basically provide training, technical assistance services to ORPs to really help them expand their reach and reach more people who are at risk for experiencing an opioid overdose or who may be likely to witness one and could administer naloxone to save a life. So real quick about naloxone itself. So it's an opioid antagonist medication. This is a medication that essentially blocks the effects of opioids in the brain. There are multiple naloxone products that are approved by the Federal Food and Drug Administration, specifically for use in reversing an opioid overdose. And what happens with an opioid overdose is opioids alone or in combination with other substances that have a sedative effect will cause respiratory depression in an individual. It's the respiratory depression that can ultimately lead to organ failure and death that we associate with opioid overdose. What naloxone does is it binds to the opioid receptors in the brain and basically kicks the opioids off of those receptors. So they stop activating those receptors in the brain. That leads to restoration of breathing and essentially can be the difference between surviving an opioid overdose or not. And naloxone has long been used in emergency medicine, both in by EMS and in hospital emergency departments to safely and effectively reverse opioid overdose. It's not a controlled substance. There's no abuse potential with naloxone. It is a long track record of being incredibly safe, has no effect on people that are not experiencing an opioid overdose, very rare or minimal adverse events. It's safe for children and pregnant women. And there's multiple different ways naloxone can be administered. It can be injected into the muscle. It can be administered intravenously. The most common way these days that naloxone is used in the community is what's called intranasal. There are products that are basically like a pump spray that you place into someone's nose and spray it directly in. That's what you're going to see in most community settings, and among most of our overdose response programs that we authorize to do this work throughout the state are using the intranasal version. So the overdose response program, this was established by law in 2013 in Maryland, and it's administered by us at the MDH Behavioral Health Administration. And mainly what we do is we authorize organizations throughout the state to train individuals on how to recognize and respond to an overdose with naloxone. The statute that created the ORP includes legal protections, both for people who are trained and administer naloxone. They're protected from civil liability. It protects healthcare practitioners who serve the role of prescribing naloxone, and it basically encourages through these legal immunities and protections individuals to not just get naloxone but actually act in an overdose situation without fear of any kind of negative consequences for them. What we do beyond just authorizing organizations to do overdose response trainings and distribute naloxone, we provide technical assistance to ORPs and best practices in overdose response, education on selecting overdose response products. And a main thing we do as well is we operate a statewide centralized purchasing system where we make both naloxone and other supplies like fentanyl and xylazine testing strips available to authorized overdose response programs free of charge. Basically, once an organization becomes an authorized ORP, we set them up with the system where they submit purchasing requests for naloxone and supplies to us, and we process it through a state level drug distributor, Cardinal Health, and directly ship those supplies to the ORP. So we have actually now over 300 organizations that are authorized as overdose response programs throughout the state. And it's really a wide variety of organizations. I mean, we have all of our public health agencies, we have medical and behavioral health providers and health systems, community-based nonprofit organizations that do outreach in the community to reach people who use drugs, social service agencies, the law enforcement agencies that have their officers carrying naloxone throughout the state. All of them are authorized as ORPs. That's the mechanism by which law enforcement is equipped with naloxone. And we also have a number of colleges and universities that are authorized to do this as well. In 2024, we had over 400,000 doses of naloxone distributed in Maryland. That was reaching over 157,000 people. And since the beginning of the overdose response program, our strategic priority at MDH has been trying to get naloxone in the hands of people who are most likely to witness an opioid and respond to an opioid overdose. That includes people who use opioids themselves and also their friends, family, and close associates, because we know those are the people who are most likely to be there and have the possibility of saving someone's life. Organizations that are authorized as ORPs, we also collect data from them. They're required to report stats to us in terms of the number of individuals they train, number of doses of naloxone they distribute. So we have that information on the activities of ORPs throughout the state. And we also, there's a sort of a core training program that we maintain that ORPs are meant to deliver to the people they train. So it covers topics like recognizing the signs and symptoms of an opioid overdose, how to administer naloxone, things like rescue breathing to ensure that they're receiving oxygen while you're waiting for someone to respond to the drug, the importance of contacting emergency medical services, and also techniques for providing compassionate post-overdose support and care. Because one of the things to be aware of is when you administer naloxone to somebody is you can basically precipitate opioid withdrawal, which can be a very unpleasant experience for the person, which can involve vomiting, just experience of dysphoria, just a host of other sort of symptoms that they might experience that could cause them to want to leave the scene as quickly as possible or not accept further medical care after that. So a lot of what we do now is trying to focus on working with ORPs to understand what products should you select that will focus on restoring breathing while minimizing the possibility of precipitating withdrawal. So here's a list of colleges and universities that are currently authorized as ORPs in the state. There's some variation among the purposes for which different institutions have become authorized. A number of university police departments are authorized in order to equip their officers with naloxone. We have a number that also are doing naloxone distribution through health clinics and whatnot. So there's really a variety of reasons that colleges and universities have become authorized over the past years. And we just encourage IHEs to work with us if they're interested in this, making this available to their students, faculty, or others in their systems. And so I'll talk a little bit about how to become an overdose response program. Just some basic things to consider if you're interested in doing this. You might want to think about who in your community is most likely to witness or experience an opioid overdose. Again, thinking through what would, if you're going to take on this work of training individuals and distributing naloxone and test strips or other supplies in your community, who are you trying to reach the most? Can you include those groups in planning your ORP to determine how best to meet their needs and how best to reach that high-risk population? What organizational units in your institution are best positioned to reach those groups? What are thinking about health clinics, through athletics, through student life organizations, whatever it might be. It's useful to think about what are those existing organizations or entities within your community that would likely have contact with people who are at high risk for opioid overdose. And it's also worth considering what units within your organization would best be positioned to support some of the administrative requirements around being an ORP. I mentioned earlier about how ORPs are required to report data to us. There are some record keeping requirements if you're going to get set up to dispense naloxone to the people you train. It's not a huge burden associated with it, but it's worth thinking about who could handle that administrative component. There are some key personnel associated with being an ORP. We require that an organization name in what we call an entity director. This is usually sort of an executive official among the organization or unit that's going to do this. A training director who's responsible for overseeing the day-to-day operations of it. So they could be responsible for maintaining the records, scheduling, setting up trainings, and also the supply ordering, working with us on that. And if you want to have your ORP actually distribute naloxone, you will have to have a licensed healthcare practitioner with prescribing authority. This could be a physician, this could be a nurse practitioner, physician's assistant. It's their prescribing authority that's used when we're actually dispensing naloxone to individuals. They don't have to be an employee, they could be a volunteer, but that is one component in this as well. And if you don't have a licensed healthcare practitioner, we have an arrangement with a lot of ORPs where where medical staff that work for BHA serve that role for these organizations. So we have some flexibility on how we handle that. There's a link in this document to our ORP authorization application that we handle at MDH. It's not an onerous process to get set up. We will walk you through it. My staff schedule a time to do an orientation with all new organizations that are requesting to be ORPs. And then once that authorization process is done, then we can set up organizations to actually submit purchasing requests to us for naloxone and drug testing strips as well. That involves setting up a ship point location and some other details. But also I want to emphasize that, under our current ORP setup, all colleges and universities are able to become authorized ORPs. And once they do that, you can get these supplies free of charge. We use a variety of different federal and state fund sources to pay for it. So here's a link to our main naloxone email address that you can send any questions you have about this to us. We also have our overdose response program webpage with a lot more detailed information about the ORP. And again, if there are any colleges and universities that are interested in becoming an ORP and are not currently, we are happy to set up a time to talk to you individually, walk through the process, and answer any questions you have about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Brent.
I was just going to say thank you very much, Michael, for that really detailed overview on our ORP program. Just to reiterate a couple points that Michael made, we just want to make sure that all of our institutes of higher education know this free resource is available. And beyond the resource, I think one of the other valuable things that Michael highlighted is the ongoing training and technical assistance. We know that standing up these programs in non-traditional settings that are outside of the behavioral health spectrum can often come with a lot of questions and even in certain cases stigma. And we're really happy to work through all of those questions, concerns, stigma with you and your staff in order to make this successful so that we're getting these life-saving resources out into the communities that most need them. And then the third thing that I would just want to reiterate is Michael mentioned that the medication can precipitate opioid withdrawal. And I remember when I first took my first ORP training, I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm got the potential to hurt somebody with that. But I think it's really important to mention that opioid withdrawal will not be fatal like certain other withdrawals like benzodiazepines and alcohol. What is really concerning and fatal when it comes to opioids is opioid overdose. So just to quash any concerns that might be shared around that. And then last but not least, I just want to thank Emily for giving us the opportunity to present today, and each and every one of you on this call for showing up and listening as we've offered this resource. Please feel free to reach out. We are very excited to partner with many organizations on this. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it. Let me open it up for any questions. For our segment leads, we're going to send this out for you to circulate out to your campuses so to the extent that you can promote it with the right student service organizations, whoever you talk to who would need this information so that they can leverage this resource, please send it out. So we'll circulate it to segments for you to send out. And now you know Brendan and Michael for direct contact. Great. Any questions? Do the requisite 10 seconds. If not, thank you to our Department of Health colleagues, and I'll turn it back over to our Deputy Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, and many thanks to our colleagues from MDH. Like Emily said, we'll do, and I think my colleague Alex Wen is on the line. We'll go ahead and collate all of the follow-up so that we are not dispersing them individually to you, and then we'll send one major follow-up email in a couple of days to make sure that we get you all of the materials as well. So jumping back to the standing items, we're going to move to our state plan update. Many thanks to everyone who's joined us so far, and understand that folks have to come in and out based on calendars. We'll be quick here, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague Al. As a friendly reminder, this is another standing item that we committed to providing regular updates to the Segmental Advisory Council on. We've had the benefit of engaging with several of your offices and institutions as we develop the state plan for higher education. And then this just kind of gives us a moment to do a little bit of member checking to make sure that everybody has the latest. As another reminder, we also provide these updates on a regular basis to our commission, but given the topic of this September commission meeting being heavily focused on the budget, we will not present an update again to that group until October. So with that, I'm going to try to do this in less than 5 minutes. As everyone knows, and hopefully this slide is familiar, we are statutorily required to write and update the state plan every 4 years. The state plan has a number of elements that must be included in it, and that includes the present and future academic and research needs of the state, assessing the capacity of our institutions, segments, and overall ecosystem to meet those needs, and also setting short-term and long-term priorities and objectives. If you've heard Commissioner Agu talk about the state plan, he does a really nice job of using metaphors in a way that I will attempt to do, where the goals, if you're thinking about driving to a certain location, and in this case, it's driving to the top, the goals are really the address. That's the place where we want to end up in. That's our North Star. The state plan is a turn-by-turn directions when you're using a GPS that tell you how you're going to get there. And so we've been working closely with a steering committee of about 30 people on the elements of the state plan. And hopefully you received the list of steering committee members last week, if not the week before last. And they not only represent all of the segments that are here on this call today, but they also represent industry and economic development partners. If you were on the PRPAC call earlier today, you heard about the importance of economic competitiveness and the role that higher education institutions play in recruiting businesses and companies in various industries and wanting to come to Maryland, particularly in the sense that we produce the talent that is needed to make those companies successful. So we have those folks. We also have philanthropy and community-based organizations that help to improve college access and success. So a number of different folks are contributing to the development of the state plan. And we have a vision that you have seen, and this vision has been updated throughout the past several months based on feedback of the steering committee meeting. And you can see that we are definitely interested in entering into the 21st century and setting up all of our students for success. And that's not only economic competitiveness and thinking about workforce development, but also making sure that our learners are well-rounded human beings that can effectively participate in a multiracial democracy. And given the conversations that we're having these days and the amount of political violence that we're subject to in this country, that commentary around civic engagement couldn't be more important. We also have recalibrated 3 wide state goals. So like I said, this is a direction that we're headed in. We're very interested in looking at attainment. We're also very interested in defining credentials of value and making sure that all of our credentials are of value, not only to individuals, but to the state. And we're interested in mobilizing all of our institutions of higher education and post-secondary education for research and innovation. And you'll see that there's this cross-cutting comment around leaving no Marylander behind, which really is a testament to Governor Moore and his commitment to making sure that we serve all Marylanders well here in the state. The last element that might be new to this group is a series of guiding policymaking principles. And so there are 3. I think there is generally wide agreement that higher education was not designed for the majority of the people who are on this screen. So as we set new goals and set a new vision, we also need to make sure that there is consensus on what these policies and what the policy scheme should look like. So we won't be getting into necessarily the nitty-gritties of which policies MHEC and the commission will be examining over the next 4 years. That work will definitely come later. But the principles that we've put forward based on the feedback of the steering committee is center every learner. And this concept is really around making sure that regardless of which institution and what niche and what your mission is, that you are centering the students that are coming to your door. This is a flip on the script for a very long time. There's been an overemphasis on college and career ready students, but this is really talking about student ready colleges and universities. The second is around driving public impact and value, and recognizing and acknowledging the public mission of higher education. And we don't just do this for ourselves, but for society as a whole. And then recognizing that institutions of higher education cannot do this on their own. And this is something that we have to do in collaboration with not only other institution types, but other, in our case, other agencies and sectors as well. The good news is that everything that I have just sped through is actually with the steering committee right now. We've invited them to provide us feedback on language. They are in wordsmithing mode. So many thanks to our steering committee members who are in the middle of completing that survey. But I did just want to talk about one thing really quickly before turning it over to Al. The steering committee later this week will get another survey, which will ask them to give us some feedback on how we think about attainment and completion. This is one of the lessons learned coming out of 2013 and the work that the state did after setting the 55% attainment goal there. And so I do want to recognize Dr. Barbara Schmertz and the work that the RPA team is doing in support of the state plan. But just as a heads up to this Segmental Advisory Council, we will be asking the steering committee for their feedback on how we think about attainment and how we think about completion. You'll get these slides, but this is something that often can be confusing to folks who don't think about this on a day-to-day basis. So we wanted to make sure that there was clarity around the relationship between the two, but also signal that these are not, in fact, interchangeable goals. So with that, wanted to give you a sense of where we're going. We meet at the first Thursday of every month from 1 to 3 p.m. Last month, we were joined by HCM strategists. Next month, we'll be joined by our colleagues at Education Strategy Group and Georgetown Center for Education and Workforce. We'll also have a meeting in November and in December. And here on the final slide, you can see that we'll be focusing on developing a talent strategy and measuring economic mobility next month. And then we'll turn our attention to research, innovation, and public impact in November. I really did not anticipate doing that so quickly. I apologize for rushing through those slides. I'm happy to pause here to see if there are any questions about this content.
Well, I will say something. While we went through these slides a little quickly, but you have access to these. A survey is out. Make sure that all of you are represented on the steering committee through the survey. It's very important that you give your ideas, your guidance forward as we plan for the state plan. As you see, we are data driven. A lot of data is being shared and presented, including the data from 2013 goal and a lot of other things. And also we are looking at best practices. We are hearing from ESG and McKinsey Group and others with workforce alignment and how higher education becomes an important part of economic development. We have always been integral to economic development of our state. This is another opportunity to take that involvement to the next level. And most importantly, coming up with this plan and goals in the most collaborative and most transparent manner. And I think this is the way to give our feedback and move forward. Once the plan is finalized, then we'll all work together, celebrate, and work together in implementing the plan. So thank you so much for everyone's guidance and involvement with this effort.
Thanks so much, Secretary Rai. And we are very lucky to have national partners joining our conversation, complementing the expertise that we have here in the state. And I can't thank enough my colleagues at MHEC for their leadership and their guidance throughout this process. So with that, let me turn it over to Al for standing updates on financial aid.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary. Almost afternoon, everyone. Okay, so just a few updates. For updates for programs, I'm going to focus on 3 different programs which have become highlighted. Well, 2 of them have become highlighted in the past month. Of course, the GA Guaranteed Access Grant is always one of our highlighted programs. So for Howard P. Rawlings program, not to go over each number, but we've awarded a total of 11,534 students for a total of 112 million right now. As you can see, we still have students that are in a non-accepted group for about 4.3,596 students. We've been able to award all GA students as well as EAR students on the wait list. So as you'll see, looking at the 25 million remaining available funds, we've awarded 11 GAR students for 184,000, 1 NGSGA student for 16,000, 10 GAI students for 114,000, for a total of 314,000. We do still have students on the waiting list that are in a not ready to award status. They could be on the not ready to award status for reasons of individuals were selected for verification, still waiting on documents from them, or the team is still reviewing those documents. In other cases, individuals are still reporting credits on individuals, so waiting on that. And we do have some individuals that are coming in for an appeal, as well as some students that have done a FAFSA, but that FAFSA is missing some information and waiting for a corrected FAFSA on those individuals. So we take into the account how much we would need for all those students that are still waiting on the wait list, which is that 13 million. And we're still seeing that there is 12 million left for EARs. We've awarded all students that are ready to be awarded on the EAR wait list, which was 97 students for 259 $800,000, and then leaving our remaining funds of $11 million that we're looking for when students come eligible to really get a determination. I will note in there that we award the GA all year throughout the year. We just check on a weekly basis. For some reason, we never have where no students are not eligible, or all students have been awarded and everything's been complete. And in some cases, it comes from special conditions that are done by the institutions, in which a new FAFSA comes in. The student did the FAFSA before the March 1st deadline. They may have not been eligible initially, and then that new FAFSA comes in based off the special conditions, which decreases that student's income, and that student and their family now become eligible for the guaranteed access. So our award goes ongoing throughout the full year. We have also opened up our certification and our request payment process for the fiscal 26 year. So institutions are now able to start certifying funds and requesting funds for payment. To give you an idea about our Teaching Fellows program, during the 2024 legislative session, the program was reduced. 2025 legislative session, sorry. Our program was reduced down from 18 million to 14 million, not only for fiscal 25, but also fiscal 26. Based off that, we have already awarded a total of $13,960,568, leaving $39,000 remaining. We do see keynote to look at is that we have individuals that have not accepted the awards for these students for about $1 million. So we're really looking to see what happens with those students, as well as certification has been opened up. So the faster that schools certify or cancel awards for any student who is not attending or not eligible for any reasons on the institutional side, that will bring funds available for us to award students that are on the waiting list. In regards to students on the waiting list, you'll see that there's about 48 students on the waiting list for $1,114,826, which we do not have the funds available for right now. However, as I said, we award on a weekly basis. We look at students on the wait list, and even if it's only 2 students that could be awarded on the wait list, we select those 2 students to award. The wait list has those individuals arranged by their ranking, so we just go from the individual who's right next and award that individual. First, we go with any renewals, and then we will look at initials depending on how much funds we have available. Based off that, we now have $3,628 remaining. We still have 46 students on there for $1,079 or $1,079,022 that we will look to award. That's right in that million, so it will depend on how many students are declined or canceled their award. There are still students on the waiting list that are not ready to be awarded. It's about 236 students for a total of $5,826,251. We will not notify students that they're not eligible for the award until we have that total, or as close as we can, 14 million that has been accepted by all students. However, we have sent out notifications to individuals that are on the waiting list ready to be awarded, letting them know that they qualify, they are on the waiting list, and as funds become available, that they will be awarded. However, we also identify on that notification that funds are not guaranteed, and they may need to look at other arrangements while looking. The last program I'll highlight is our cybersecurity program, which again, both the Teaching Fellows and cybersecurity increased in the number of applications and eligible students dramatically compared to FY25 to FY26. With cybersecurity, you see that we've awarded a total of $799,786. So we have 200,000 remaining for those individuals to award, as well as there are still 50,000 for 2 students who have not accepted the award. For cybersecurity, we moved forward. We had 57 students for a total of $2,249,717 that were ready to be awarded. Of that, we awarded 5 students for $189,717. The reason why we went that amount, because all other awards would have put the students over the max amount that we had available, which was that 200. And there we have about $10,497 remaining, but there are 92 more students on the waiting list not ready to be awarded, for a total of $4,159,781. So again, the number of applicants for cyber has increased dramatically as well. Other updates just to put on, we did submit legislative requests in language to postpone the guaranteed access grant, decentralization of the guaranteed access grant. We're looking to postpone that and receive support and approval until the 2029-2030 award year. So we will keep you up to date on that. We did notify institutions as well as the FAC committee on this. MDSIS, we are still working with MDSIS and pushing to implement that new system. We have a group within the higher education institutions financial aid offices. So we are working with that group and will be scheduling a meeting coming forth with them in Attain/region partners for institutions to have some insight on not only what the system will look like, but also suggestions, comments to make the system better for our institutional partners. Additionally, 2526 FAFSA and MHEC 1 app. We are partnering with MSDE for the FAFSA beta group. The federal government is in beta group 2. MSDE has reached out to their different high schools to see what schools can partner. There are about 2 schools that identified that they did phase 1, and they're looking for more information from the federal government for phase 2. So hopefully we get some different ICERs, which are our institutional student information records, in earlier than just October 1st, or at least by October 1st, to really look at our processes. And then we're pushing for the MHEC 1 app to become available by October 1st. So we're working diligently with our vendor to make sure the application is ready. Last, for FY25, even though we've closed out, we held money aside in various programs for accruals. Our accruals are the students who have accepted their awards, but those awards were not certified and paid. So this now leaves institutions until December to work with us to get those funds certified and paid. So we will continuously reach out to the financial aid offices. We definitely want not only students to be certified and paid, but for students that have awards at the institution and the student did not attend, for those institutions to cancel those awards so really can zero out all records within the system and really know how much funds we've spent for the fiscal year, as well as how much funds we need to either send back or revert to our need-based student program. And with that, I will leave it for any questions.
Al, I'm not seeing any hands, which we will take in the higher education space to mean that your presentation was incredibly comprehensive and thoughtful, and it provided all of the information that members needed to know. So we will go ahead and distribute these slides in the follow-up email. Thanks to you and your team for all of the hard work over the summer. I think everybody who is here knows that it's been quite busy in the world of financial aid here in Maryland, but we continue to work to support our students in the institutions who serve them. Thanks, Al. We have about 20 minutes left, so this will definitely be more of a speed round. If it's okay with Dr. Dow, I'll start with the September commission meeting preview, and then that way I can turn it to you to close us out. Earlier during the meeting, I alluded that the September commission meeting will focus heavily on institutional budget requests. Hopefully all of our institutional partners have heard from our agency CFO, Assistant Secretary Jeff Newman, regarding your slot and when you will present before the commission your budget request. We only have one other item going before the commission that's going to be presented by Dr. Dow. So with that, I'm going to go off mute and just Emily take the rest of the meeting. You can close us out with your item and then move on to the next, please.
Sure. So the one item on the commission agenda that will be a voting item will be the final adoption of the credit regulation revisions. As some of you might remember, we proposed some regulatory changes that would align our definition of credit and credit hours to that of the federal government. This was long overdue. The federal government changed in 2014. We revised those regulations, put them out for circulation. We received no comment, and so they are ready for final adoption, and that will be the agenda item. So questions on that? Okay. If not, I'm going to move on to our next topic, professional certificate. As some of you are aware, we just finished a 2-year academy with SHIO and ESG and a couple of other national organizations. It's a non-credit mobility academy. It's a national effort to improve visibility, alignment, and value of non-credit post-secondary education. I saw that Brad left, but I don't know if we have anyone else from MAC on the call, so feel free to chime in. Much of this work does focus on community colleges, but there is opportunity for our 4-year entities to participate, and of course our private career schools. Some background here, the term non-credit, we heard it earlier today, is a challenging term to describe certain programs and opportunities that our colleges offer. We have evidence that students feel that the term non-credit reinforces the idea that those programs are less than credit-bearing ones, even though they are often crucial for workforce development, upskilling, and licensure preparation. So we've been working on figuring out that terminology so we can better communicate to the public the value of programs that may be using credit hours to describe student progress. To do that, we've landed with potentially revising the term professional certificate. It's an existing term that we have in regulations. We circulated a survey at the beginning of the summer to get feedback and thoughts on revising the definition of professional certificate. At this point, the revisions would reflect a credit, non-credit clock hour neutrality and would allow campuses to use this term to describe non-credit, workforce, continuing ed opportunities in a more consistent and coherent manner. Some next steps, we are likely going to present some updates on this work at the October commission meeting. We will be following up with a number of partners, including our USM 4-year partners, our private career schools as well, for their feedback. And like I said, the ultimate goal is potential revisions to regulations. A long-term initiative for this would be to start including professional certificates into the MHEC academic program inventory. Again, as some of you may be aware, we started some data collections, specifically with the community colleges, on student completion and enrollment in these programs. Really interesting data, really useful to send it over to MLDS. We see these individuals in the labor market making meaningful wages in industries that are of high need and of high value. So including these programs in the academic program inventory will also help us elevate the tracking of that. Additionally, exploring financial aid opportunities. We have several two financial aid programs that lean towards non-credit programs, particularly at the community colleges. There's opportunity to maybe expand some of our other financial aid opportunities. And then finally, alignment with state and federal initiatives. This aligns very well with our conversation around credentials of value. Certainly a blueprint around industry recognized credentials And then you just heard everything around workforce Pell eligibility. So giving a name to these programs will allow us to better align these initiatives and not think that they are annexed or less than. They are complementary, high value, post-secondary educational opportunities. So that's an FYI. More to come on that front. The next big public discussion would likely be the October commission meeting, but we'll be following up with individual conversations in the interim for further feedback. So let me stop there and see if there are questions, comments, or concerns before I move into the other two topics. Okay, next topic. This is the second funding opportunity to share with segments and off to the campuses. This has already been shared with the campuses. So this is just for your situational awareness and a secondary plug that this exists. As many of you know, the public institutions are now expected to provide a variety of opportunities for access to contraception and reproductive health resources. Delegate Kelly, who was the sponsor of the bills in 2 separate years, is now the executive director for the Maryland Commission for Women. And thanks to her work, she has secured some grant funding to help institutions implement these 2 requirements. Specifically vending machines, allowing student access to a variety of contraceptive resources. This is an existing grant opportunity. Again, we've circulated this link. You'll get it again. Please do share it with your campuses. It is on a first come, first served basis. $10,000 per grant, 11 grants will be awarded. So please do make sure your campuses are aware of this opportunity as they are working to implement the new legislative requirements around access to contraception. Questions on this? And I'll throw the link in the chat so you have it right away.
I don't have a question, but I do just want to voice over really quickly for the group, the partnership, which I think is really interesting. And one of the things that we're trying to do more so with our colleagues at the executive branch, which is a lot of our sister agencies want access to institutions of higher education, whether it's talking about access to contraceptions or Narcan, or even how do we become a part of the strategy to make our state more economically competitive. And that's a role that MHEC is starting to increasingly play under Secretary Rye and Emily Dow's leadership. So I just want to thank you, Emily, for partnering with our colleagues across the state. I know that they're interested in figuring out how do we get in touch with IHEs. So to that end, to the Segmental Advisory Council, please do give us feedback. We hope that this is useful to you versus you getting random updates from random agencies. Not that we consider any agencies to be random, but hopefully it does streamline the way that you engage with the state as well. So Emily, thank you so much for that work.
No, thank you. Yeah, and I again, to our Deputy Secretary's point, we are trying to organize this so that you are getting information in a package as opposed to one-offs or side conversations. We want to make sure everybody has the same information at the same time. Okay, third update, a request around experiential learning. We will be sending out a request to the institutions. This is exploratory information around academic programs that require, encourage, or may not even have experiential learning opportunities. We talked with the Faculty Advisory Council last year, and we've developed an initial draft of a topography of experiential learning. When we say experiential learning, we're talking about everything. This is not just internships, it's not co-ops, it's not I mean, it is all of those, but it's also classroom experience, client-based projects, innovation labs, entrepreneurship opportunities. It's anything that is career-connected learning specific to an academic program. So we have a long list of a variety of different types of experiential learning that we think programs are arguably already implementing or could implement. So we're going to be asking institutions to use the existing API. Every institution will get their own worksheet. And we're asking them to identify programs that require experiential learning, that encourage experiential learning. So there are resources or maybe part of an optional curricular requirement or curricular opportunity, but not a requirement. So encourages it, but not required for students, and programs that just don't include it at all. This classification will help us further draft the typology. So we'll allow campuses to say, hey, you need to add more to this typology. We have a couple of examples. It will also help us to identify institutions that already offer significant career-connected learning, again, at the program level, and are well suited to potentially pilot a more comprehensive experiential learning requirement. So this is exploratory information. If we're just asking institutions to, give us their best knowledge around specific programs at the undergraduate level. And then we'll come back to the Segmental Advisory Council, likely at the November meeting, with some next steps. There's a lot of interest from our sister agencies, particularly Department of Labor and Department of Commerce. When they hear from industry, they're saying we want to make sure graduates have career-connected learning opportunities, and we'd like to be able to boast the expansive opportunities that the campuses already do, and think about ways that we can expand for campuses that may need additional support. So that is a forthcoming request. We will likely funnel that through the academic provost and chief academic officers, but we'll certainly copy segment leaders, and we ask for your support in encouraging institutions to complete these institutional specific Excel files. I will stop there and see if you have any questions. Yes, go for it.
Thanks, Emily. I just wondered about if you could talk a little bit more about the option for experiential learning. So, for example, I know there are institutions that have the career centers coming into majors, and they're kind of facilitating things, but it may not be a formal elective within the program.
Yeah, exactly. So we would want to say, yes, it's there and there's opportunity, but it's not a requirement. Yeah, yep, absolutely. We will also make a distinction where we want to be clear, we're not talking about a gen ed requirement. It is a specific programmatic requirement, again, career connected to the program, learning outcomes, and future job opportunities.
And I'll jump in on that one and want to thank our colleagues at USM for all of the work that they're doing related to civic learning and engagement. That is an area that we want to be, I would say, tightly coupled in the way that we look at data, collect data, measure civic learning. So thank you, Emily, for clarifying that this is related to career-connected experiential learning.
I think it's great effort. We are very encouraged. Several of our institutions are taking a lead at the national level in experiential learning. Great work is being done. And this is, again, we talk about economic competitiveness, role of higher education in economic competitiveness. It happens through homegrown talent, aligning our workforce, our academic programs, learning environment, everything with the workforce, right? So that's very important, and I'm pretty sure we'll get some really good data from this survey.
Great. Fine. Can I add one more thing before I turn it back over to you, Deputy? For introductions, I also want to announce that we have a new Director of Academic Affairs, Dr. Natasha Cornell. She's on the screen. She will likely be the one sending this request. So get to know her name. I'm sorry we can't do more detailed introductions, but I think she has sat in on a number of meetings already. And we're thrilled to have Dr. Cornell on the team leading the academic affairs. So she oversees the program review team, institutional review team, our veterans affairs team, and our private career school team. So Dr. Cornell, welcome. And for those of you who have not had the chance to meet her, please do not hesitate to reach out to either one of us as we implement these various initiatives. Thank you. Back to you, Deputy.
Thank you for introducing Dr. Cornell, and this is a great time at MHEC as we continue to build capacity, particularly in the academic affairs side, we were able to add Karen King Sheridan earlier to the team earlier this summer. Also acknowledging that we have a new associate director in Al's shop, Christina Fritz. So definitely appreciate that we are in the capacity building stage here at MHEC, and welcome all of our newest teammates. The final item that we have are our member updates. I actually just learned a new term over the weekend. Apparently in other spaces, folks call these whip arounds. Because you whip around the table and you ask folks to provide updates, knowing that we only have 4 minutes left, and it has certainly been quite a whiplashy agenda. I'll just open it up to the group to see if there are any updates from any of our members that they would like to share.
I don't know if I'm the only segment person left, but I'll just say we had a record number of degrees awarded in USM in fiscal 25. So more than 45,000 degrees and more than 28,500 undergrad degrees. So a little good news.
We would love to end with good news. I do see some of our colleagues from MICUA and MAC, as well as Morgan on the call. If you have any more good news like that, please share with us. Candace, if you don't actually mind sending that to the team here, I know that our Director of Communications is on, Kristen Clarkson. So we are more than always happy to take that good news and amplify it. Thank you so much for sharing. Any other member updates? If not, then we can end 3 minutes early, which is great. Thank you so much to everyone. This really is our meeting. So if any of our advisory council members have things that they would like to discuss, don't hesitate to reach out and we'd be happy to put it on the November agenda. Thank you, everyone. Happy September and happy fall. Be well.